And I imagine, so you've just got, like, I guess what we don't have is like wilderness.
Right.
Yeah. So where you grew up, you had access to just
Right behind my house.
mountains. Yeah.
Kamloops is just the wild frontier.
Yeah.
Tons of hills, and there's areas that are especially designated to dirt biking, and you can go shoot guns and dirt bike or ATV or 4x4. And everywhere in town was just wide open. There wasn't a lot of fences. There's some areas that were fenced off for cattle and whatnot. You don't want to scare the cattle, but there'd just be great swaths of wilderness. And Kamloops is just amazing terrain, with it being formerly a lake. So there's these clay sediments that are hundreds of feet tall and chutes and drops, and it just made for shredding.
Wow.
And there'd be dirt bike trails winding through the hills. Not many mountain bike trails because there weren't really mountain bikes yet. But a lot of the good trails were made by cows, because they just wander and they just do the same route and they just pick really good lines. And so there'd be these cool cow trails and dirt bike trails. And then once we started mountain biking, we'd ride these trails that they weren't quite gnarly enough. So then we started going free ball down the hills and free riding. And so we did that all through the 80s. And by the time a film crew ever came to town in the 90s, mid 90s, 95, Greg Stump had sent Christian Beijing to film Pulp Traction. We had been free riding for a long time.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is the movie that never actually came out. Is that correct?
I think it actually did come out, but it came out in smaller numbers than it was. Like
Okay.
at first they thought it didn't come out, but it did.
Okay.
And it was Pulp Traction, and that was a movie that was sponsored by Specialized, and it was made by Greg Stump, who made the wickedest ski movies at the time. That really broke free skiing to the world. Warren Miller had made movies for years, and Dick Barrymore and different people, but Greg Stump made it punk rock, and had cool tunes, and Glenn Plake with the Mohawk and Scott Schmidt were the dynamic duo, and some other really rad skiers, and that really blew the doors open for free skiing. And so he came to town to film a mountain bike movie, and I had told him that Richie Slade could do a 360. They came to film him do a 360. He did the 360. I smoked a joint with him, and then he did another 360. He'd stopped the first one, and he crashed, and he drove his face into the ground. And
We saw it this morning.
film had to be sent away to get developed, and then they didn't realize that the one that he stuck was out of focus, so they never used it for the movie. They just showed him do a 360 and drive his face into the ground. I feel bad. And so then after we did that, we did a little bit of single track. They're like, okay, what do we do now? And I'm like, I got something for you. And we didn't call it free riding then. We just called it riding steeps. I go, let's go ride some steeps. And so I took him to some steep lines in where the Kamloops bike ranch is now. And I said, I'm going to ride that. And they didn't believe me. And I'm like, oh, I've done it before. Let's do this. But we had to use these little Specialized bikes, and they were size smalls. And so I'm a big dude, 220 pounds, 6 foot, on this tiny little bike. And I picked a gnarly line, and I rode it and fully got bucked and bounced and rode it out to the bottom, drove it into the ditch at the bottom of the road and bent the wheel and the forks back into the top, the bottom, or the down tube. Handed it off and was like, there you go. And the camera's like, oh my God. Okay, you're in the movie. Because I posted that shoot, and all of a sudden I was in the movie. And they say that was the moment that Freeride was first introduced to the media.
Wow.
And they made like a movie by Darcy Turan called The Moment. Yeah. And that was the actual moment that it really hit the media. And that was Pulp Traction in 95. We did another movie in 96 called Dow of Riding. And then in 97, we filmed a movie called, it was going to be called Wheels of Freedom, but it became called Cranked. And that came out in 98. And that's the movie that really broke it to the world. And Freeride was like kickstarted into the media.
So at that moment, what was mountain biking?
Mountain biking was mostly like Lycra racing. And even downhill at the time were mostly like roads,
Like fire roads.
Yeah, totally. Like Corrado Horan and guys like that were racing downhill. And it was guys in Lycra and a lot of racing. People would race cross country and downhill on the same bike, dual slalom. Like it was Lycra and I would say Sean Palmer, showed up I think around 98, 99, and he introduced the moto look, and a lot of the Lycra riders were like, And then as well, the Fro riders, myself, Wade Simmons, and Richie Slade, were using baggy shorts, and I was actually the first mountain biker that I know of that used armor. I used like skateboarding knee pads, and I had my football hip pad, and so I was using a lot of padding, and I think the Freeriders, we introduced that baggy shorts look, as well as Sean Palmer with the moto look, and we kind of try to push that lycra look to the you know,
Out of the way.
leave it to the out of the way and leave it to the cross country crew.
It's so crazy to think that all of these like micro things have all been moments, because you know, like when I turned up into mountain biking, so much was already decided.
Yeah.
Same for you, right?
Yeah, totally. We were talking about this morning, weren't we? Because we were
Yeah.
watching, I can't remember the exact film we were watching, the name of it, but we were thinking about like the first time we saw mountain biking.
Right.
And when you're talking about, you know, riding the steeps on those sort of bikes, I mean, it's literally before I was born. So that had all happened. And I mean, my first sort of look at it was like around where you're talking now, like this Palmer sort of era.
Right.
You know, it was a moto thing. I was a moto kid growing up, and then I remember getting like a dirt magazine, or what it was called, something different initially, and just being like, oh my God, like you can do moto, but it can be cheaper on like this cheaper style of bike. That was my first real
Interesting
point
that was your angle.
Yeah.
And it was the year like Jason McElroy was on the covers with like on different bikes getting rad.
Yeah,
And,
around that
the
that
Red
sort
Spec.
of time.
right,
Yeah,
on the Red
Spec,
Specialized. Yeah, I remember those.
Yeah, Jason.
I never
McCrory.
met him, but I remember seeing the photos as well.
Yeah.
I think being in the UK also, before internet, I think there probably still is like a delay.
Yes,
You know, like
100%.
Hollywood movies, for instance, we always used to get them way later.
Right, same as in Canada.
And the magazine.
There you go. Yeah, there you
Back
go.
then, yeah, the
except for
magazines.
Canada, except for mountain biking, you were the
We were the ground zero.
yeah.
Although mountain bikes were originally made in Marin County, that was the birthplace in the world. And it's interesting, my wife is from a place called Deep Cove, and the Deep Cove Bike Store was the first mountain bike store in Canada. And Chaz would go down to California, and he brought back mountain bikes and put them in the Deep Cove Bike Store. And my wife watched them roll off the truck and get put into the store.
Wow.
She saw them roll off the truck, the first mountain bikes in Canada. And she actually watched like the pre-mountain bikes, like the Cook Brothers Fat Tire Cruisers, roll off the truck into the store. And so she was a young chick that hung out at the Deep Cove Bike Store. And it's a historical spot in Canada, and went on to become a very, very much a hotbed and mecca of mountain biking in North Vancouver.
Okay.
Okay.
Hey man, what an episode that was. You did amazing in it.
And so did you.
You shone like a star.
You shone like a moon.
Can we also put something up here that you can click on for the next episode?
How about we put a subscribe up there in the middle?
Yeah,
We're going to put a video we think that our lovely companionship will love
Yeah.
on your face.
On my face.
Yeah.
So
And
they
on
can't see me now.
Gone. And on my face, another video that we think people will love. And thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Please hit like and subscribe. You guys are the best.
Peace and love.